Hi, my name is David Brewer. I'm a United States veteran who served in the Navy from 2010 to 2018, and today I will be presenting a slide that will show the basics of a underutilized benefit known as VA disability. This is just a simple guide to help service members, family members, and veterans understand a little better about the VA system. A little about my VA story. When I separated in 2010, I didn't know much about VA disability or how it worked. I had a litany of different injuries and different health issues that were in my record and some that were not in my record. Because of my journey, it was a hard crawl from 40% to 90%, advocating for myself. And I feel like there's a lot of information that different veterans just don't know about, including myself. And this is just to help get you started on your VA journey. Here's a little bit of my injury history. I had a right knee partial MCL tear, and here's a history of right knee pain. Here is a animation of what happened. This happened during a training exercise in Virginia. I was training on a field. The field was uneven, and I slipped, and this was the result of that slip. As you could see, the outer ligament was tear. That's what happened to me, and it ended up having me have to be in a boot, do a lot of rehab, and I still have pain in that right knee today. The next injury I want to go over was a grade 3 AC right shoulder tear and dislocation. This happened in a training exercise as well. I was running full speed, and another service member stepped in front of me, and I tripped over them. As a result, I landed all my weight on my right shoulder, and this was the injury. As you can see, it was a complete tear of all the ligaments, and I also dislocated my shoulder. Another injury that I got rated for was lower back pain. I had a couple of incidents where I fell down a ladder well on the ship with 50-pound paint buckets where I hit my spine on the ladder well every ladder down. As a result, that compressed some of the disc, and I got something called spinal stenosis, and this is kind of what that looks like. As you can see, there is narrowing on the spinal column, and that's what I have. It's pinching the nerves, and it creates an immense amount of pain on my lumbar. Another thing I was rated for was plantar fasciitis. As you can tell from the boots we wear, they did not work well on my feet. I have arched feet. This caused a lot of pain and soreness in the heel of my feet. Uh, with that kind of strain on my foot, I went to medical about it before I separated and explained that my feet hurt after long running and walking, standing for long periods of time, and it was intense after prolonged periods of activity. I needed gel insoles, things like that, and I only like to wear tennis shoes now. I don't like to wear boots or anything like that because it hurts my feet so much from wearing boots for so long while I was in. Now, here's a disability I am in the midst of with the VA right now, and there was a craniotomy and a brain tumor. Back in 2017, I fell off a pull-up bar and I hit my head. Now, nothing resulted from my head being hit other than a concussion, but they did find a coincidental finding of something they called an arachnoid granulation. After going to a neurologist while I was in, he informed me that it was most likely a brain cyst, not a tumor, and that it's just occupying space and wouldn't be causing any type of issue. Unfortunately, he was wrong, and it turned out to be a brain tumor, and it caused irreparable damage. For 5 years, I was in and out of the VA hospital trying to figure out what was going on. It took coming to a new VA in a different city to finally figure it out. Um, and here's a little bit of what that looks like. So they did have to remove part of my skull to get to it, to get to the tumor. It was growing on the first layer of the brain, and they were able to remove it, much like how you seen in this video. It was exactly the same procedure I needed done to remove this tumor that was erroneously labeled as a cyst. Here was the post-surgery scar from that. As you can see, I had 20 stitches along the right side of my cranial, the same place they found the arachnoid granulation. And as stated from my neurologist, an arachnoid granulation can be a tumor. So hopefully, when I take it to my higher level review, they'll be able to see that posted into my notes, and maybe I'll get approved for this disability. Time will tell. Um, there was a couple of reasons why I think this got denied. So one was that a VSO tried to file for the arachnoid granulation as a brain abscess. Since I wasn't diagnosed with a brain abscess, it was denied. That rating code is code 8020. When we found out it was a tumor February 2023, we tried to refile as rating code 8003, which is benign brain tumor. But the VA rater did not consider my new evidence, nor did it review any of the prior evidence. And because of that, it was denied. And with that, I have gotten a VA lawyer, taking the next step for a higher level review. It's part of the system of filing claims. My mental health, I want to say I am not going to go into my mental health. That is private. I will say, though, that you can be rated for things like anxiety, panic attacks, PTSD, non-combat, and combat related. That includes sexual assault. I would like to also mention insomnia and other mental health issues, including sleep apnea. I would consult a mental health specialist prior to separating and try to be on your own mental health journey. It's not one I would like to revisit. But here's a video showing you how stress responds to the body.
The fear center in the brain, called the amygdala, takes over. The brain sends out a distress call, which results in the adrenal glands located above the kidneys, releasing hormones that speed up your heartbeat and breathing. Constant stress, it can change in ways that make you even more vulnerable to stress. A constant flood of stress hormones can also do damage by weakening your immune system, leaving you more prone to infections. It may trigger inflammation that puts you at greater risk for conditions like heart disease and diabetes. The fear center in the brain.
So, how does that relate to you? Any type of stressor, and mind you, the military is one of the highest stress rated jobs in America. Um, you would want to put into your medical record and reflect that, especially about 1 year prior to that you know you're going to be separating, and that's for all active duty and reserve members. Um, it turns out that there's over 950 VA disabilities you could be rated for. I was unaware of my benefits when I separated, and it cost me a lot of money, time, jobs, and it landed me in some pretty rough patches. I now share my journey with all those who listen. service members, veterans, family members of service members. This story is meant for guidance. It's in the try to help other service members understand and navigate the VA disability system. Here's a list of things I didn't know about the VA when I was separating and that I should have known. The VA disability processing system, the how far out from separating that you could start filing claims, va.gov, militarydisabilitymadeeasy.com, the difference between pre-existing primary, post-separation, and secondary VA conditions, VA medical codes, electronic medical and dental record requests, how to get VA rated, specifically the three things that raters look for, evidence needed for claims, severity rating ranges, building your case, compensation and pension exams, medical coverage, and VSO and benefit agencies. So where would you begin? So the number one thing I try to tell people is that you know for sure you're separating. You done the paperwork, you're going through the process, you're like, there's no backing out. I am going to separate from service. Um, Once you made that decision, your last year in, I suggest you take a silhouette of this medical person right here and you start listing everything from head to toe, inside out. I'm talking gastro, headaches, um, any scars, injuries, current disabilities, future disabilities that you can think of, exposure to the chemicals, your different places you were stationed at, the different ways that your job in the military or your experience in the military created your current disability. And the best way to do that is to get it while you're still in the service. You need to go to medical your last year in. You're no longer a service member. You are going to be preparing to be a veteran. And that was the best advice I've ever gotten while I was in the military, because without that advice, I wouldn't have had the medical record I had and had the evidence to support my claims. The best things you want to do is get your all things listed head to toe, and you want to check out that militarydisabilitymadeeasy.com website, and you want to go through and list everything you want on your medical record, as thorough as when you went to MEPS joining the military. So when, where, and who should file my claim? So claims, I suggest you file 180 days prior to separating. By this point, that silhouette should be filled out. If you have not filled out that silhouette by 180 days prior to separating, you're falling behind. You need to create a strong case for every disability you're going to claim, and I suggest getting your evidence electronically. Um, I suggest getting your medical and dental records from every duty station saved on your computer in a safe file, maybe double saved, maybe even saved inside of a cloud or something like that. I have mine saved inside of a Dropbox. It comes in handy when you need to build your case against the VA, because the VA will find anything to deny you. What are the requirements for getting VA rated for a disability? So these must be true. You must have a current illness or injury that affects your mind or body, and you served in active duty or some active duty training or inactive duty training, and you got sick while you were in service, while you were active duty. And this is an in-service disability. It's the most common disability, but what people didn't know and what I didn't know is there are other disabilities, such as pre-service disability claims. For example, I injured my ankle prior to joining the military, and the wear and tear of my time in has put a lot of stress on that ankle. And it's not the same as it was when I entered versus getting out. But because I didn't put a formal complaint in about it while I was separating, they denied me for that claim despite the pre-service record I had. So that's something to think about when it comes to pre-existing conditions. And then when it comes to post-service disability claims, this is stuff that you see like when you were exposed to something, some chemical at some duty station, or maybe some chronic disease, burn pits come to mind, the PACT Act comes to mind. When you have a disease or something that accumulates after service and you can link it back to your exposure to your time in, you will be rated for that disability. So that's something I really drill it into people. You really want to make sure that you have everything documented. So you meet the requirements. Well, what are you going to do next? Well, if you meet the requirements of the start of your claim, you want to start building your case. When you want to start building your case, you want to know your rating codes, you want to know the severity of your symptoms for your disability, you want to have them recorded in your medical record, you want to record your job exposure, any specific injury events or chronic events like falling out of your rack, for example, on the ship, or falling down ladder wells continuously, or any type of injury that could have sustained through that is an example of getting that in your medical record. You need to be able to classify your ailments in the five VA claim categories, pre-existing, in-service, post-service, bilateral, and presumptive VA claims. And I kind of went over them, but I'll go into more detail further down this slide. So pre-existing conditions are things that happen that were made worse during your time. An example that's most common is asthma. Well, say you got a medical waiver for asthma, and you got exposure to chemicals that made that irritated the asthma, and now that you got out, it's gotten worse. If you have that documented in your medical record, you can file it as a pre-existing condition. Other pre-existing conditions, think about any type of waiver you needed to get in, could qualify as a pre-existing condition as long as you complain about it on your way out. In-service conditions, most common, this is something like an injury that occurs during your time of service and uh, it's documented and you could pinpoint that to your current disability. An example would be that AC tear I had. It happened during a training exercise. I was sober, and I had plenty of witnesses, and it's clear as day on my medical record, the diagnosis, the injury, the incident, everything. So that's an example of an in-service condition. So think of anything that could have happened to you while you were in any type of injury. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of different stories that apply to you that could fall into this category. The other one I kind of went over, post-service conditions. This is conditions that happen um, post-separation. Mind you, I want to say you have about a 1 year window post-separation to further fill into your medical record any conditions that may be bothering you. An example for me would be I had a lot of indigestion, a lot of um, bowel issues, a lot of things like that with digestive issues in general. And I got them looked at within my 1 year window, and thus they were able to be qualified to be service connected as a post-service condition. But a lot of other ones would be people who worked with the burn pits, were exposed to those chemicals, and now they have asthma, they have other different ailments that occur from that. Cancer as another one. That would be a post-service condition because you can link it back to your exposure to the chemical burn pits to your current disability. Bilateral conditions are unique. Um, so a bilateral condition means when one area of your body is affected, and then it also affects the other side. Another example would be, like I stated, like my shoulder, breaking that shoulder. I can't put a lot of weight on my right side. My left side now has to compensate for the right side's weakness. The same would go for my knee. So I'm rated for my right knee because of that MCL tear, but I'm also rated for my left knee because it compensates for the right knee. I can't put as much weight on the right knee as I can on the left, and because of that, I am able to get rated for both knees. So think of anything that comes into eyes or another thing. You injure one eye, you can get rated for the other. If you injure one hand, you can get rated for the other hand, as long as you can prove that the injury requires some kind of uh, way that it compensates for it. The word is compensates for the lack of ability of the other hand or the other shoulder or the other knee. So that's something to keep in mind if you injure a knee, if you injure a shoulder, if you have something of that sort that's a pair, uh, you can potentially be rated for both sides. And then this is a new one. This is presumptive and chronic illness. I kind of mentioned this 1 year post separation. These are conditions that are automatically assumed that would happen to you because of your time in. Um, you only need to meet the requirement that you were stationed somewhere or, excuse me, that you were placed some duty station that um, is linked to now cancer or something of that sort, and then you were diagnosed with that, and then you could be like, oh, I was over here during that time, and now I have cancer. That would be a presumptive condition that you can get rated for. I'm pretty sure you've seen those commercials for Camp Lejeun's water. That's another one. If think about like gastritis, you can get anything like that. Any stomach lining issues from drinking the water. Any future cancer issues you get from that, uh, digestive issues, all that stuff would be considered presumptive. And another one would be hypertension, arthritis, diabetes, anything of that sort that could be connected back to your job, to where you were exposed to and where you were at. That's why having that documentation of your service time is so important because it comes back to this. You can make these claims if you have proof that you were stationed during this period. What you've probably seen lately is AFFF and exposure, and then you're probably seeing that water treatment issues and aircraft carriers. That's another one that I guarantee in the future that you'll be able to claim if you were stationed on an aircraft carrier. They're going to have a list of presumptive illnesses that if you were diagnosed with them, you will be covered for it. So really think about that before separating. So building your case, disability severity, and VA rating codes. So VA codes and disability. So when I broke my shoulder, it was filed under a rating code 5203 for AC joint with malunion, which means it's separated. And so there's another rating code, it's 5202, that's like without separation. So those little differences can make on the coding can make or break a case. And I've seen it happen. It's happening to me now with my current brain tumor. So when I tell people when they're talking to their VSO, they're talking to their representative, they're talking to a VA lawyer, they're talking to whoever, they should know what VA codes are, and they're just medical codes that are designated to disabilities. And like I said, there's over 950 of them. And if you get diagnosed with something that falls in that category as a result of your service, and you can prove it, then you can get rated for it. The idea is you want to paint the timeline of your disability. Most importantly, that it stemmed from your time in and that you currently have this problem now. Getting a diagnosis, seeing specialists, talking to your doctors, and getting support from people like that is the best way to build your case. Disability severity rating, that is the rating you get for the severity of your disability. And for each disability, there is a certain range, usually from 10% to even all the way up to 100% of symptoms that you can meet for this qualification and get rated for it. I highly suggest you go to militarydisabilitymadeeasy.com. They break down the severity ratings and you can see what are my symptoms and do they apply, for that severity. Don't lie about it, but look at where you are at and be honest with yourself. I'm like, do I have these symptoms? Say yes or no. If yes, are they in my medical record? And that's the most important thing. if you can put it in your medical record from the beginning of your service, time in before separation, that will be key. That would be the most important thing. And understanding these disability codes is just as important. Um, so this is just some understanding of your disability percentages and what you qualify for, different benefits as your percentages vary. As you can see, I have them listed all the way up to 100%. And some final notes, you need to be sometimes your own advocate, paired with someone who knows the system, a VA lawyer, a representative. It depends. Every case is different. Every case has different variables, different factors, in different ways that can alter a decision for a VA rater. So when you're presenting your case to, a compensation pension exam and talking to a doctor and talking to these people to explain, the pain and your disabilities and your long-term care and everything like that, make sure that you have everything in there. I mean, don't miss anything. Every part of yourself, from your mental state to your inner state to your body, every part of you. Examine it as much as they examined you in MEPS and get it in your medical record so that way you're not fighting the VA 5 years later, spending money, doing ridiculous hoops, jumping over hurdles to get to the rating you feel you are entitled to. So I hope this helps. And here's some helpful resources and websites that I think you should check out. Uh, I will be keeping more notes on how my higher review claim goes for my brain tumor. And this is more so for everyone to kind of understand, you know, the beginning workings of the VA system. This is merely me just scratching the surface of and intertwining my story and my VA disability climb. It's not the same. It's not going to be the same as everyone else's. So don't expect that. But I do hope that you know that this slide helped you, get you a start, to get at least a start to get everything going. I highly suggest if you want to file claims to go to va.gov. They have great instructions, but also I would go through every single one of these websites. I would write down every single rating code that I feel was applicable to me. I would think of every injury I've ever gotten from the military. Anytime your sleep was disrupted, anytime you were overstressed, I mean, times you saw things that you know are not normal, get them in your record and get every injury, ache, pain you can think of notated because it will help you in the future. And thank you. Please feel free to reach out to me about any questions or concerns, and I hope you like my presentation.